Collins. I'm a Korean literature and culture major. I studied abroad in South Korea, and my research is based on issues of cultural assimilation for North Korean refugees in South Korean society.
Hi everyone, my name is Sonia. I am a dance major, international studies major, and a conflict resolution minor. I studied abroad in Italy, and this past year I studied abroad in the Netherlands, and I went to Panama to conduct my research. My research was mediation through dance, and it was mostly involved in how we can connect dance to service and combine my two majors in a way. So.
Hi, my name is Sarah. I'm a third-year international relations major, and I went to Sweden last year, and I'm interested in studying the relationship between the EU and CME.
Hi, my name is Elena, and I'm a fifth-year environmental science and anthropology major, and I studied abroad last year in Australia and Solomon Islands, and my research mainly focused on natural resources and sustainable use of them in resource management, and trying to figure out how to get the Solomon Islands to develop sustainably using forests as a natural resource.
Great, and I think Elena's going to go first. Yeah, I don't know, I guess you can use that one or the...
Yeah,
it's whichever one.
Okay.
And if you guys want to stay here, everybody wants to sit here and watch it.
Okay, so hi everyone. So these pictures are actually from the Solomon Islands because that's where we conducted research. The way the program worked was that we did 2 months in Australia of like intensive classwork, and they prepared us really well for the Solomon Islands because it's a developing country, you know, some of the countries that have last gained their independence in the world, and they're just trying to figure out how to develop sustainably. And so we took anthropology courses, sustainability and resource courses in environmental and ecology and other sciences. And we used the skills that we gained in Australia to apply to our research in the Solomon Islands. And so we were divided into, there were 17 of us, including me, and all of us were divided into one of four different groups, and I was in natural resources. The other groups were WASH, which stands for water, sanitation, and hygiene, and then another group was social issues, and then the last one was food and nutrition. And so my group specifically was divided in between marine resources and terrestrial resources. And I chose to look at, so the impacts of like, I started thinking first like, because they give us a lot of liberty into what we want to like look into and research. So I started looking at deforestation. It has become like more widespread in the Solomon Islands, and that's a huge natural resource. So there's like logging and exporting trees for their economy. And so as you can see, like these are the pictures that I took from the plane. There's just like widespread deforestation, and so I wanted to kind of get an idea of like how do they manage like conservation efforts and like ecotourism with like deforestation and trying to utilize this resource sustainably, like what kind of problems are they presented with in the process of doing this. And we worked with CNU, which is the Solomon Islands National University in Honiara. That's where we first landed. So yeah, this ended up being my research project. So I looked at forest health and conservation efforts in 3 different Western Province Solomon Islands. So we basically kind of like took a small plane or boat and just island hopped, starting in Honiara. We moved over to Munda, New Georgia, and then to Kolamangara Volcanic Island, and ended in Tatapara, which is the last wild island. So I looked at for part of my research was looking at forest health. It was like a sub-analysis of like how their forests were being maintained. So as part of that, we actually did like frog surveying. My mentor, we all got a mentor, and my mentor was actually from the Solomon Islands, Patrick Picacha, and he is a frog expert. And so I wanted to see like, okay, the forests that they do have right now, how like healthy are they? And we use frogs as an indicator species of like an indication of forest health, because amphibians are like really like sensitive to any climate or humidity changes. So the abundance or of like diversity or any presence of them is like a good indication that forest health is actually doing well. And so in these, going back to my other slide, so Munda, New Georgia ended up being like a more developed area. There was a lot more widespread deforestation, and we ended up actually finding like the least diversity of species. And then Kalamangara was actually like where we found most species, and it was like, it had a really sustainable forest management there. It was run by the KFPL, which is the Kalamangara Forest Products Limited, and they divided their island in the sense that they divided a certain area to be for logging, and another section of it, like the majority of the island, was used for conservation efforts. Even though they still lack in tourism, they had a way more sustainable way of like dealing with their natural resources than Munda did. And then the last island, Tatapare, we also found a lot more frog species and a good indication of like forest health. But the problem with Tatapare was that there was no use of their natural resources. The entire island is considered like the last wild island. And so it was only for ecotourism. And like the important part of a country sustainably developing, in our perspective, was to make sure that they're making good use of their resources and that they're also conserving. We don't want to lose, and we also want to use. So the things that we did outside of like actual field research, like collecting frogs and whatnot, were key informant interviews and household surveys. So we were like thinking like, okay, we're gonna get data from the environment, but our project was also involved talking to the people of the Solomon Islands and like getting their perspective of like how natural resources have changed over time. And so we would talk to government agencies, like conservation organizations. Duncan was part of this man right here, this great man. He was part of Nusa Tuba conservation of like marine resources and coral atolls around this island, and they were very sustainable. He didn't pertain to my project because I focus on forests, but he helped out our marine resources team. So then this is my homestay family. We had to do the household survey actually included questions on natural resource use, like have you seen drastic changes in forest cover in the last like decade or so? And we would go and we would talk to like other government agencies, and that specific Ministry of Forest research was in Munda, and it was so like sad knowing that like they knew they weren't sustainably using their like tree resources correctly. They were like really aware of that compared to like Kalamangara or Tatapare, who were more sustainable. And so other field experiences that I had was an environmental health report. We actually helped out our WASH team, and we did some water on-site sampling in different communities. Ours was the community of Namaliki, and so we took samples from their spring boxes, their groundwater pumps, and we just wanted to see like how good their water quality was, and we did hazard assessments, and that was really fun. It was really cool, but it was also really like impactful, and it actually changed. It was just one of those things that you will never forget, getting back the results and like seeing that like their water sources that they cook and eat and bathe with like have fecal matter in it, and under the World Health Organization that is like a no-no. So it was a really like crazy experience, like seeing that and like being able to redirect them to like help and a place where they can address that issue. And the coral reef surveys that we did in Nusa Tuba was part of our marine resources team, like I mentioned earlier. And that was really cool. We would do, just like our frog surveys, we would lay out these like transects. These were 30 meters compared to our frog surveys that were 250 meters. And we kind of just like walked through it, and we would measure coral health based on color charts, and also look for indicator species in terms of fish to see if the coral environment was healthy. So yeah, and this was a group of us. So, and this was the last day that we spent in the Solomon Islands, but so my big point from my research was like emphasizing the power of sustainability and the need for it, because what a lot of people don't understand, especially like Westerners that come in and like want to help these countries, and NGOs that like want to help these countries, is that we need to take into consideration like the cultural aspects of like every country. And just because an environment is pristine enough doesn't mean that it's just meant for conservation. It's important to consider the views and like the needs and wants of like each community that you work with. And so Kolomongara, the volcanic island I spoke of earlier, ended up being like the main like the ideal construct for this that I thought of. So yeah. Does anyone have any questions at the end?
Yeah, we'll do questions at the end.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Sonia Thrasher, and I'm going to be talking about movement exchange and my research, which was mediation through dance over this past summer. So background really fast, I've studied abroad twice. I went to Italy over the summer of 2016. I studied in Rome, and then I went to the University of Maastricht, Center for European Studies, this past summer 2017, and that ties into my research, even though they sound really different. I'll explain it all in a second, I promise. So international studies major, dance major, and conflict resolution minor. So after I went abroad the first year, I was like, okay, this is amazing, I should do this again next year, and I was able to do so at the University of Maastricht, but I also wanted to add something more to my summer that was not just studying abroad. So I looked into research, and I looked into movement exchange. The movement exchange is a club at many universities, 20 universities across the United States, and we have a chapter here at UCI. So a little bit of background about movement exchange is up here for you to read. But basically in 2010, our founder tried to ask the question, how can dance education reach underserved populations, and how can trained dancers use their skills to give back to the world? So she took this question of how can people who stay in the studio all day as a dance major, like myself, take those skills and contribute them to other countries, people who are in need, all of the above. So that is something I was really passionate about, and I applied for it, and I was accepted. So I became a MOVE expert, quote unquote. So this is a team who went to Panama last summer with me, and we're called Dance Diplomat. So Dance Diplomat is, as the definition says, a person who uses their talent and passion for dance to influence positive social change. All the above you guys can read. So we serve the United States, Panama, and Brazil. So as far as the United States goes, local community projects such as dance studios or schools that are underserved, we'll go to those like here in Orange or Santa Ana and work here, as well as doing the movement abroad trips, which is Panama and Brazil. So there's a station in Panama that's at all times manned, which is cool because it creates sustainability in the program. So even if we're not there on a trip, like for example, there's no university visiting over the summer, they still have people stationed there year-round through movement exchange in order to make classes available to children in need and help them through that. So behind the movement, the approach, the main goals of movement exchange is outreach, education, and sustainability. As I talked about before, sustainability is the most important because it ensures that not only can we go to a visiting school, teach kids their dance, go to that orphanage, teach them dance, give them our time, our energy, all the things that they don't get out of their environment. And not only do we do that when we visit them, but we can create those year-round, like never-ending programs. So fosters cross-cultural understanding, civic engagement, creative expression, self-esteem, empathy, and social skills. We mainly target orphanages. So in orphanages, a lot of these things are not available to you because you don't have that nurturing parent, you don't have that part of your life that creates a self-esteem for you. You're just trying to get by a lot of the time. So that's why we mainly focus on orphanages, and this summer that's where I went. And here's the vision, if you want to see that. But social skills next. So Panama City was where we were stationed, and we went to 2 orphanages where we taught. So ALDEA was the first one. ALDEA was based out of kids who came from broken homes. So maybe it was an orphanage, but maybe they have a family. The family just can't take care of them, or they're not fit to take care of them. So a lot of these kids came from really, really, really rough backgrounds, and it was kind of hard after the first day when they would talk to us. And if you understood Spanish, I can get by on Spanish, so I could talk to them, but a lot of people in our program were fluent, and you don't have to be a dance major to do movement exchange. We have a bio major who went last year, and she was fluent in Spanish, and she was like one of the star members of the team. So that was really helpful. She was from Guatemala. But yeah, so talking to these kids every day, learning their stories, teaching them dance, giving them physical touch, which is something they don't even get because they don't have a parent. So a lot of the times when kids are young, which is just child development, which has nothing to do with anything, but this is an important benefit of doing my research, is a lot of times kids are young, it's really important their touch, they have that physical contact in order to create social skills, things like that, and they don't get that. So in this picture here, actually, this is like fun candid, but I'm teaching this little girl to braid, and she does not know how to braid. She is super stoked because she's really good at it, and she just didn't have that kind of figure in her life who would teach her how to braid when she was little, and that hit me pretty hard. So that made me see that what we were doing here was a really big deal. So that's ALDEA, co-ed, younger kids, but coming from broken homes, some of them were disabled. The second orphanage we taught at was MALAMBO. MALAMBO was an all-girls orphanage run by a Catholic organization, so we couldn't wear like shorts there, we couldn't wear, your shoulders to be covered, and it basically was a giant school, boarding school. It looks like a boarding school from the outside. They get classes there and everything, but it is an orphanage. And this one was a little bit more intense because the girls there could be up to 18 years old because you graduate from the orphanage at 18. So they would be like literally a few years younger than me, but here I am teaching them. And it was kind of difficult because a lot of them didn't really know why they were there, or they were put in the orphanage later in life after they had like a nurturing family up until a certain point. So a lot of them had like these incredible backstories that it was difficult to get through, but through our training, through movement exchange, we were able to just go straight into the movement itself, how we could help them, have fun with them, create that positive learning environment where we were their friends, more friends than like at ALDEA, where we kind of more mentors. They were looking down on like, they were like, okay, I'll help you guys. But one thing about MALAMBO that was amazing is through the sustainability of dance programs that were created at this orphanage specifically. One of the girls graduated when she was 18 years old from MALAMBO, and she went on to the University of Panama, where she is now a dance major today. So that's pretty amazing because if she hadn't had movement exchange early on, she would not have had that exposure to dance, and that's now her major. So that was something really cool we found out on our last trip there. So this is me and some of them. So overall, movement exchange, this is some of the great things that they've done, and this is why it was perfect for me to use this organization to facilitate my research, because it was basically a one-way ticket to like everything I wanted to learn about and figuring out how my major in international studies, which so obviously you can take international studies abroad, make it into service, and that just makes sense. But with dance, this is not that easy. You don't think of dance as something service-oriented, but it can definitely be. So that's what I found out of my research, which was, I did SURP, so Summer Undergraduate Research Proposal, part of UROP, but not UROP. So my proposal is called Mediation Through Dance. I had a faculty mentor, Kelly Sharp, in the dance department. So she's a doctor, she's physical therapy, she has kinesiology, so she had a lot of those aspects to help me with, but she also helped me a lot with figuring out what my question was, what I wanted to get out of the trip, like why I was really doing it. And you have your thesis, research question, your objectives, you need to have an expected outcome, responsibilities, preparation, what you need to do to get there, and then you have to have a budget. So I submitted my UROP proposal, and I was awarded money. So it helped me a lot getting to Panama, it helped me a lot with the journey, so I'm really thankful that I did SURP, and I recommend it to anyone. I submitted my application, I was like, okay, this is not a STEM research-based thing. This is not like I'm trying to cure cancer. This is me trying to go to a foreign country and teach kids in an orphanage how to dance. And I was skeptical if it was going to be good or not, but no, I was awarded $1,200, and I was extremely grateful for that. So definitely apply, guys. Like, you never know what you're going to get out of it. I was not expecting that much money, but it happened. So it could be any major, it doesn't matter. So this is my thesis/research question. This is what I learned there. Basically, how does my major in dance as opposed to a major in international studies impact service on a global scale? I could see that dance, more than anything, honestly, like having that physical connection, teaching people who don't have physical touch, who don't have that confidence, self-esteem, that maybe you create a combination for them, they complete it on their own without anyone helping them, they're proud of themselves. That's a feeling that we need to foster in the environment that an orphanage creates. Dance as a universal language of movement allows people to communicate and resolve boundaries and differences. So, of course, not all of us speak Spanish. Of course, a lot of them don't speak English because they're in Panama City. They don't get exposure to Americans very often. If they do, it's pretty negative because the Panamanians do not like us. I'll call that out. But yeah, so having that, like, I can't speak, I don't know what you're saying, I don't know, she doesn't know what I'm saying, but we're able to show through movement what we mean was an amazing experience and also a big part of my research after I came back. So I did incorporate my study abroad last summer at the University of Maastricht into my total research, because living and studying in a foreign country, and it was the Netherlands, which is like the polar opposite of Panama, so that was an interesting contrast over summer. And it was the most international university in the Netherlands, so I had to learn how to speak with people, have class with people, be in group project with people who did not speak English very well. They were from other countries in the EU or South America, South Africa, or Australia or so. And my part 2 was Panama, service-oriented travel, of course, and utilizing my skills as a dance major. So I intertwined those into my whole research thesis and proposal, and I'll have to present it later, but real? Okay, I'm perfect. I'm just gonna show this video really fast. I think you guys might like this one part. Okay, this is a familiar face. So this is a documentary by a UC Irvine student. So she's the founder of our chapter here at UCI, Blair Brown. Here's our professor. So he was part of helping this organization come to UCI. It's also something I'm sorry.
Away from friends in a new classroom setting, and you're all of a sudden having to deal with all of this. And you know, if you're going abroad alone, you don't have someone to turn to. And even if you're going abroad in a group, there are different group dynamics that you have to deal with, and the pressure of trying to adapt. And I think that you learn a lot about yourself, about your strengths, your weaknesses, how to overcome them. You learn a lot about what it is to be independent, to make decisions, to rely on yourself, self-confidence. All of those things are part of the learning that goes on outside of the classroom. But you know, you stay in Irvine and you're learning this.
All right, so this documentary, if you want to learn more about movement exchange, I recommend writing it down. It's on YouTube. It's called Youth in Movement. It's actually really good, even if you're not interested in the program, because it just shows from a first-hand perspective a UC Irvine student, and just like me, who traveled to Panama, did this program, and may or may not have conducted research. I know this girl particularly did do research. But yeah, so a fascinating documentary. Just overall, I learned so much this summer through my study abroad and doing my research about myself, my majors, what I want to do in my life, all the above. So definitely recommend researching, going abroad, everything that we just had that presentation, so you should be motivated enough. But thank you guys.
Okay, hi everyone. Again, my name is Sarah. I'm a third-year international studies major. And last year I went to Lund, Sweden for winter and spring quarter. And this presentation will basically be about my study, as I didn't do research abroad. So I have a few reasons why I chose Sweden in the first place. The first reason is that as someone who studies global peace and conflict, I'm very interested in understanding why Sweden has not engaged in war for the past 200 years. So in 2014, they actually celebrated 200 years of peace. And that was very interesting to me. And I wanted to figure out more about why they choose to maintain a neutral stance when it comes to wars around the globe. The second reason is that they have, considering all that is going on in Europe, especially with refugees, I was really interested in learning why Sweden has decided to take in the most amount of refugees despite their small population. So compared to other countries, they've taken in the most amount, and that was something that really sparked my interest. They also have a feminist foreign policy, so they're the only country in the world that chooses to operate on feminist ideals, and that's also very interesting to me as well. And then the last reason is more like a personal reason. So actually, I didn't really know too much about Sweden. I mean, if you asked me like a year ago, I would have just said like IKEA and like meatballs. I didn't really know too much. And I hadn't really seen any Swedish films. I didn't really know how the language sounded. I hadn't met anyone from Sweden before. But I think that's what sort of interested me. I was very attracted to not knowing or like the unknown. And I guess not having a reason to go abroad can be a reason in itself. So it's not every time that you have to have like a strong desire or passion to study in another place. It could just be that, like for example, in the United States, you don't have the opportunity to learn more about European schools, and that could be a reason why you want to go there. So preparation. So I decided that I wanted to go into this country with not a lot of exposure to it. I didn't want to do a lot of research because I wanted to keep my expectations low. I didn't want to be disappointed when I got there. So when I came to research, I chose just to search more about like the people and how accepting they are. And then finances. I knew that I wanted to have enough money to go with me, so I do receive financial aid, and I also applied for some scholarships. I would recommend applying for the Benjamin Gilman Scholarship. So it's just basically to diversify the types of people who go abroad. And typically they give out $5,000 if you're going for a quarter or a year or 2 quarters. And if you're going for the summer, they'll give around $2,000 to $3,000. And on average, 33% of people who apply end up getting the scholarship. So there's a very big chance that you can get the scholarship as well to go abroad. And also, studying abroad is very affordable. It's for most programs, it's actually cheaper than staying at UCI. Okay, so my first impressions. So when I first arrived in Sweden, I arrived like right in the dead winter. So I arrived in a snowstorm. It was really cold. I was expecting that, but I wasn't expecting like the severity, like how severe it would be. I actually got lost when I arrived. So like there were some students who were supposed to come pick us up from the train station, and I was carrying a lot of luggage, so I kind of got left behind. So like for the first 5 hours, I was just roaming around Sweden, not knowing where to go. I didn't know how to get to where I needed to be, and it was actually kind of scary. But I guess in that first day, that's really how I was able to understand like how how to locate where I needed to go just by getting lost. And then I included this slide more to talk about like the types of people there. So when I first arrived, I thought that the Swedes were kind of cold, but then I realized maybe I shouldn't describe them like that because they're not cold. It's just that they're more reserved than Americans, whereas Americans tend to be fake. You have to smile all the time. Swedes don't do that. Like they're very real with you. If they don't know you, they're not going to come up to you and jump in your face and be like, "Hey, how are you?" They're going to take some time to get to know you. And that can be hard, like going from America to Sweden to a place where like some people don't even like talk to you, they stare at you. That can be very hard, but after some time they open up to you, especially when they're under the influence of alcohol. So yeah, that was my first day. As you can see, there was a lot of snow. That was in the center. So in Lund, Sweden, basically like the city center is where everything is happening. That's where all the shops are, that's where all the restaurants are. And then on the outskirts, that's where the residencies are. So I was living in this place called Östertun, and I was with other international students. And so I would have to like bike 20 minutes to get to the center or take a bus. So classes, research, and involvement. So when I was abroad, I took 5 classes. I took a Swedish language course. And that's pretty typical. If you're going abroad, you'll be required to take a class. I also took an anthropology course, and I think the anthropology course was the most exciting to me because that's where I really began to learn about why people sort of describe Sweden as like this utopian country. So in the Swedish anthropology class, I learned more about something called pram daddies. So basically it's like, okay, so when I first got there, I saw that a lot of the dads would be out, with their children, like pushing strollers. Like you'll see like multiple fathers out. They would have like the thing, like their baby in the front, like all of them, like on a Saturday morning. And I was like, wow, that's really interesting. And then I began to understand that the reason for that is because gender equality is very important. So it's not just the mother who assumes the role of the parent, but it's also the father as well. And I learned some other really cool things in that anthropology course. I also took a diplomacy course as well as a terror and genocide course. So research. I really wanted to do research while I was abroad, but then I realized that in order to do research, you have to be a grad student. So typically, most people who go abroad to study at Lund University are grad students, so there wasn't really any opportunities for me to do that. So instead I decided to do something called UPF, which stands for Association of Foreign, or it's like a student association of Student Affairs or something like that. So it's like where students come together and they talk about foreign affairs. They take trips to places of political interest. So for example, I had the opportunity to go to Copenhagen, Denmark, and we went to the UN city. We also went to the Mexican embassy there as well. Social life, so as you can imagine, Sweden is not the most exciting, but still there's, I did have a lot of fun there. I traveled to some other cities in Sweden. I went to a few clubs there. I was really surprised that they were playing like a lot of different types of music. I was expecting it to just be primarily American music or European music, but they were playing like a lot of Afro beats and reggaeton and stuff like that. Because actually when I went there, before even arriving, I thought, Sweden would be like this homogeneous state where like everyone is tall, white, has blue eyes, is blonde, but that wasn't the case. There were so many different kinds of people there. So, which explains why there was a lot of cultural diversity there as well. So I joined something called Skånska Nation, and basically it's their equivalence of our Greek life. The only difference, however, is that theirs are co-ed, where ours here obviously are not. And everyone typically joins it because there's not a lot of stuff to do. If you want to have fun, you need to join a nation. So about 99% of the students there do join, and you can join a nation based off of, so each nation is like sort of categorized by different themes. So Skånska was one that was, the theme of it was music. And then that was in this place called Västervik, and it was a lake house. So this boy right here, Lumbe, we went to his lake house during Easter break, and I got to experience the minimalist Swedish lifestyle. Yeah, that's at a beach. 1 minute, okay. So yeah, basically, this slide is just to talk about what I took back with me, and I have this phrase here, it's Volum, and it basically translates to everything in moderation. I could choose to talk about like how I grew as a person or how I came back with all these skills, and that's obvious. All of you have been abroad, and I'm sure you all can attest to that, but I put down Volum because that is a paradigm that I choose to apply to all aspects of my life. I feel like Americans tend to overdo things, whether that's work, study, play, or whatever, whereas in Sweden, you want to have a healthy balance with whatever you do. So when I came back with a different perception of life, and I realized that I want to align my life with those Swedish values that I learned over there. So yeah, thank you.
I'll just use this. Hi everyone. Hi, so my name is Maddie Collins, and I studied abroad for the 2015-2016 year at Yonsei University in Seoul, South Korea. Just wondering how many people studied abroad at Yonsei here? Okay. Yeah, so it's one of the most popular schools for UCI students to study abroad at, I think, because there was a lot of us there when I went. I did not do research abroad, but I got an inspiration to do research while I was abroad that inspired me to do research when I came back. So I'll spend about half of this presentation kind of talking about my study abroad experience and why you should study abroad if you're still on the fence. And then I'll spend the second half talking about my research and kind of the things that I went through while conducting research. So one of the best things about study abroad, I think, is you do not only get one home campus, but you get two campuses to call your home. And I really fell in love with Yonsei University. I'm hoping to go back for graduate school. It's beautiful, and it was just an amazing experience to be part of the Yonsei University culture on campus and participate in their festivals and get to see the campus change from seasons, from like beautiful fall with all of the colorful leaves and winter wonderland winter, and then the cherry blossoms in the spring, which is something that we don't get to see here in Southern California. So yeah, this is just a collection of pictures that I took. I had some of the best experiences of my life while I was abroad, getting to see classic tourist sites, dressing up in Korean traditional clothing and going and walking around Gyeongbokgung Palace, and I completed my biggest goal, which was actually to visit the DMZ, the demilitarized zone between North and South Korea, which is like a big tourist spot, but it's just an amazing experience to be there and kind of feel that eeriness and that discomfort, but it's amazing. And yeah, other experiences that I had, I met some like low-key celebrities, like not real celebrities, but celebrities from YouTube that I watch, because there's like these channels that are pretty much about Korean culture, about, you know, foreigners in Korea and what they do. So I actually randomly saw one of them. I don't have a picture here, but I randomly saw one of them at the Yonsei campus, and he was filming a video. And so I went up to him and I'm like, "Are you Dave?" And he's like, "Yeah. Do you want to be in an interview?" And I was like, "Sure." And so I was in his video, and like, people from here, from home, started posting it on my page or like a couple days after it was posted. We're like, "That's you, Maddie." And yeah, so that was fun. Okay, so one of my biggest motivations for being interested in Korea and for my desire to go abroad actually is my passion for the issues of North Korean human rights, and which started in high school when I got involved in this nonprofit organization called Liberty in North Korea. It's actually present on campus. I'm the president, and my VPs are here, Judy and Natalia. So say hi, wave your hand. There's Natalia and Judy. Okay, yeah, so that's us. It supports North Korean human rights, and basically what this group does is they work in the US to spread awareness about the North Korean human rights crisis. And they have people stationed in China and Southeast Asia to find the North Korean defectors, because there's a lot of people who are escaping these North Korean or the human rights abuses in North Korea and going into China. But there, since they're illegally there, they're not citizens there, they can be captured and repatriated back to North Korea, where they can face torture and imprisonment. And also, they're vulnerable while they're in China, so Liberty in North Korea goes and finds these people and brings them to other countries, mostly South Korea, where they can start a new life. And so I became involved in the South Korean branch while I was there, which is working with the people that they've helped rescue and bring to South Korea. And I became involved as an English tutor, so I taught English one-on-one to the North Korean students who were studying in the South Korean universities. This was one of the most amazing experiences of my life, because it completely affirmed my passion and what I wanted to do with my life, getting to see these people face to face, getting to form relationships with them, and getting to see how amazing they were and how motivated they were to form a better life for themselves after everything that they had gone through. So through this organization is actually where I had the inspiration for my research project upon coming back, because one day I was talking with this young man who was from North Korea and who had been helped to South Korea by Liberty in North Korea by this organization. And we were just talking, and he asked me if there was any challenges that I had while I was in South Korea. And I basically said like, oh, well, sometimes I kind of feel like I'm on the outside, because South Korea is pretty homogenous country, and so obviously for foreigners, it's sometimes hard to really feel like you're a part of that community, which is expected for someone like me, because I don't look Korean at all. But when I told him what that challenge was for me, he said, "Me too." He said, "That's a challenge for me too." And it was in that moment that I kind of got taken aback, because here I am, like, blonde. Of course I don't look like them. Of course I'm going to be on the outside in that society. But here he is, also a Korean. And he's kind of feels the same way that I do. And so that kind of made me start thinking about the situation of the North Korean people on a different level. Also in terms of the human rights issues that they face while they're in North Korea and while they're in China, but then on another level, the issues that they face when they're in South Korea and the process of trying to assimilate into that society. So I chose my research topic to be on the issues of cultural assimilation for North Korean refugees in South Korea. And I did 2 quarters of research under Professor Kyung-hyun Kim. And he's actually a professor of Korean cinema. So I kind of came with this idea of what I wanted to do, and he kind of helped it go to another level and helped me find these 3 sources of kind of media sources. So there's this documentary called The Journals of Musan, which is basically a fictionalized portrayal of the life of a North Korean refugee living in South Korea. And then this TV show called Now on My Way to Meet You, which features North Korean women living in South Korea. And it's kind of a comedy show. Just kind of, it's like part comedy but part tragedy, kind of a dramatized retelling of their lives and their situations and stuff. And then another book / documentary called After Defection, What Kind of Korean? And so he helped me identify these 3 sources and to analyze the kind of narrative that each one puts out about the lives of North Korean people in South Korea. And from these 3, my research went into a view of analyzing the narrative that was out there about the lives of North Korean people in South Korea and what was missing there. And then from that, determining the main issues that these people face during their journey of assimilation to South Korean society and the whole kind of process they go through on multiple levels, on social levels, on economic levels, on cultural levels of what their assimilation process is like. So some challenges I had with research. I think with research, if you haven't done it yet, if you're thinking about doing it, just have an open mind. Like, expect it to not go exactly as planned. Because when I first started, I was fired up for it. I was like, okay, I'm gonna find this, this, and this, and my paper's gonna be amazing, and it's gonna be wonderful, and it's gonna be a piece of cake. But it's not. You have to really just have an open mind to what you're gonna find, because you never know what the resources are gonna bring you, and you never know what your mentor, the people that you're working with, are going to kind of like suggest to you to make it better, take it to another level.
Yes.
1 minute? Okay, thank you. But then, honestly, research is one of the best decisions that I ever did, because through this paper and through diving into this issue, I realized just how much I love this, how much I love what I'm doing, and how I want to keep doing this, and I want this to be something that forms my future and something I go after. And so it increased my passion for this issue by leaps and bounds, and helped me to be excited for the future. So yeah, I'm planning to, if I can, go to graduate school at Yonsei University and take my research into field work and work with the North Korean people living there. And yeah, thank you.
All right. Brenda Carrasco, come on up here and bring the microphone up to Maddie. Questions. Thank you all so so much for sharing about your experiences. That was fabulous. So, do you want to say like 1 minute about what research you got inspired to do this week, what you're looking forward to doing?
Yeah, so, sorry, I realized I kind of talked about it in my presentation, but I know for sure I want to do, look more into the relationship between the EU and Africa. I at first said EU and Scandinavia, but my regional focus in international relations is Africa and Middle East, and then after going there, I realized that Scandinavia, you wouldn't expect this, but they do have a strong relationship that exists between the two. So whether that's focusing on global conflict and peace or economic relations, that's just what I'm interested in.
Okay. Anyone have a question? And I know a lot of you have already studied abroad, and a lot of you have not done research. So if you want to ask any questions about, what were the challenges? How did you get excited about it? How did you get from not doing research to doing research, and anything about what it's meant, or anything else you'd like to ask them? You can ask them stuff about their study abroad experiences too. We have a question over here.
Just like a general question for you. One of the biggest fears that I have, one of the reasons why I'm not doing research, is because I'm kind of scared that not being able to contribute something new to the research topic. Like I'm always scared, like I'm going to go into a topic and people are like, oh, so someone's already done this. And nothing you're giving is new. Have you encountered something in your own research?
So I forgot to mention earlier that the program I did is called Pacific Islands Community and Environmental Health, and it's with UCAP, but the program that I did, all 17 of us, I think, came in with this expectation that we were just going to like change the communities of the Solomon Islands, like help them for the better, and like come in and like just make this like amazing impact on their environmental health, and like find this new, like just all of us want to do that. Like we all come in and do that, and it was really frustrating. And at one point, like all of us went through this change throughout our month in the Solomons, where it was like the biggest impact was them on us. Like they actually taught us more about ourselves and the world, and that's one of the things that our mentors told us as well. Because we would get really frustrated and we would be like, no, like we want our research to be like this, or we want our project to be like this, and it's because of things like that. Like we want it to be special, or we want it to like be meaningful. And you have mentors that have been doing research for years telling you like, no, that's not the way research works, and kind of like Maddie stated earlier, like it's the most frustrating process ever, and you're always going to be recreating your project. It's never the same as from the beginning to when it ends. And yeah, just go for it. I would say just like go for it, and whoever chooses to be your mentor is definitely going to believe in you, and like you're going to learn from it, and it's going to be great.
I kind of struggled a lot with that concern as well before starting my research, because I felt like, oh, so many other people have done this. This is unoriginal. But I think what helped me to get over that fear or that concern is to realize that, I mean, we all see things in a different perspective, and we all have our own individual interests that are different from the other person. So even if it's similar to what someone else has done, you personally have something new to bring to the table. And by combining other things that you look into, or thinking about it from a perspective that's brought on by your own experiences or brought on by your own personal interests, then you can make that into something that's original in itself.
And I just wanted to add, if you remember what Saeed said when he was here, you're going to fail, and that's what happens in research. It's not not a bad thing, but you set out to do something, and it's not going to be, you're not going to end up doing what you set out to do. You're going to end up doing something different than what you set out to do, and that's fine. That's all what part of the research experience is. It's a path. More questions? I have a question for you guys. Can you say anything about how your research experience affected your studying abroad experience? Like, how did it contribute to it? How did it make it better, different? You know, what was the value of doing research while you were abroad? Why did that make it worthwhile?
So for me, the best part about studying abroad was the research, because who the hell gets to go to the Solomon Islands? Like, I hardly knew anything about the Solomon Islands before going. All I had heard about it was that it was like, there were like ecological refugees, like this new idea of like people having to run away from like the Pacific Islands because they're just undergoing threats from like sea level rise. And so I definitely think 100% doing research was like the best part about study abroad. And like, especially if you're like, I don't know, sciences or like anything that has to do with like field research, it's like the most exciting thing ever. Like, who gets to catch frogs in the forest? It was amazing. And just like, yeah, and then like swim in the most beautiful coral reefs in like the world, a little better than Great Barrier Reef, because it was just like really dead when I went. That's so nice, amazing corals. But yeah, so if you're gonna pick something you're really passionate about, know that it's going to make your study abroad experience 100 times better.
Really fast. I just what impacted me the most about doing research while I was traveling and being in different countries. A lot of the time you're in that different country because you're there just like learn about the culture, they're traveling, vacation, whatever. When you go abroad to do research, you're like going abroad with a goal in mind. You just like do such more of a purpose, and you're just more conscious about everything you're doing and how it affects your research. And okay, how can I like collect what I need to get for my research question? Like, how do I find the answers I'm looking for? So you're just like more. It's a more conscious experience, if that makes any sense, because you're not just like going there for your enjoyment, you're going there because you have a goal in mind, and that just makes it more fulfilling completely, in my opinion.
More questions?
Sure. Yeah, how was your experience impacted by the like global political climate? And I guess anyone can feel this, but North Korea people.
Well, it wasn't really, honestly, like, I know that North Korea is a really hot topic. But it was interesting because, like, when I was over there, and every time there was something like that happening with North Korea and Kim Jong-un and that kind of stuff, my mom would be texting me. Like, I would get all these messages like, stay in Daegu, don't go to Seoul, like, all this stuff, like, be careful, are you okay? And then I looked around at everyone around me, like all the South Korean people around me. They're like, oh yeah, it happened. Yeah, we're used to it. So I was kind of like, okay. So yeah, it just kind of goes to show that a lot of the things sound like they're bigger here than people feel like they do. Or they're just kind of used to it over there. It's just kind of like part of the daily life. So yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah, so I got used to saying I'm from California, not America, because I did not want to identify with the rest of the country. I'm actually from the Midwest, Missouri, so it's a very Republican state. And I know if I said Missouri, people would be like, oh, you're one of them. So I just decided to say California. But in my international relations classes, a lot of the conversation always drifted back to America, and I was the only American in my class, so they would always want to know my perspective. And I'm like, I don't have anything to do with that. Like, I didn't vote for that. So, yeah, just always constantly being asked questions, I would say so.
Really fast. In Maastricht, I was taking all EU-based like policy classes about the European Union, and so I was also like the only American, and everything was like, oh, so Trump did this, like why? And I was like, I'm so sorry, I cannot answer that. I have no idea. But that was a really interesting perspective that they just be like, I think the students who were in the EU who I was in class with, they were just like, they would see me as just like, oh, you're American, like tell us everything about Trump policy or administration right now. I was like, honestly, I'm like on you guys' team for this, so yeah, it was pretty interesting to have that perspective put up on me because that's where you're from. So.
All right, great. I think we've come to the end of our time. Thank you all so much.